It was a cloudy day when Anton arrived at a village lost in the wilderness. He had received a mysterious letter a few weeks ago, inviting him to visit a forgotten place where, the letter claimed, he could find answers to questions about his past that had long tormented him. Without giving a name or signature, the author of the letter only left an address and a strange wish: do not be afraid of what you will hear. The road to the village was terrible and old, rutted dirt road, overgrown with trees that had almost completely swallowed it up with dark greenery. Anton's car hummed, pushing through the mud, but he could not allow himself to turn around. Something in this letter did not let him go, some invisible connection with those shadows that always haunted him in his thoughts and dreams. He could not remember what it was, but the feeling that he had already been here did not leave him. When he reached the village, it looked almost abandoned. Only a few old, rickety houses stood along the narrow road, and not a single sign of life. There was a strange silence in the air, so deep that it seemed to be palpable. Anton stopped the car at one of the houses, got out and looked around. The sun was already setting, although it was only about noon, which seemed strange to him. He went to the door of the nearest house and knocked. Silence. Another knock, and the door slowly opened by itself. It was dark inside, but Anton still crossed the threshold. The room was empty. The smell of damp and mold hit his nose as soon as he took a step inside. The walls were peeling. Pieces of fallen plaster lay on the floor. The only furniture, an old table and a couple of chairs, looked like they had not been used for decades. Anton looked around and headed for the door leading deeper into the house. For a moment he thought he heard a whisper, quiet and barely audible. He froze, trying to make out the words, but the sound disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. The door slowly closed behind him, and he shuddered from the unexpected sound. Anton decided that it was just the wind, but the cold that had gotten under his skin told him that something was wrong here. Suddenly there was a knock, quiet, but sharp, as if someone was knocking on a wooden wall. Anton turned around abruptly, but there was no one in the room. The second door led to a staircase that went down to the basement. This house was strangely familiar to him, as if he had already been here before, although this simply could not be. Anton, overcoming his inner fear, decided to go down. Halfway down the stairs, the darkness thickened so that he could hardly see anything. He took out his phone, turning on the flashlight. The basement turned out to be unexpectedly spacious. The walls were lined with rough stone. On one of the tables in the center of the room lay old books, papers, and strange instruments that looked medical, but with some twisted purpose. Anton felt a slight chill when he saw the metal hooks hanging from the ceiling. The whispers filled his mind again. This time they were louder, like the voices of many people talking at once. He did not understand the words, but these sounds awakened a primal horror in him. Anton began to search the basement. He felt that the answers he had been looking for so long were somewhere nearby. When he opened one of the old chests, a scraping sound was heard in the far corner. Slowly turning around, he saw a shadow flash behind one of the columns. The footsteps died away, but the cold filled the room. He continued searching, and finally his hands felt something metallic and cold. It was a key. A key to something very important, he knew that for sure. Almost immediately, a hoarse voice echoed throughout the basement. "Don't touch it." Anton froze, his heart pounding. But his hand still gripped the key tighter. The hoarse voice cut through the silence again. "It's not for you. Go away before it's too late." His blood ran cold, but he took a step back toward the stairs. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet shook, as if something huge had woken up under the house. The whispers grew louder, merging into a wild roar. Anton couldn't stand it. He rushed upstairs, trying to leave this damned place as quickly as possible. When he ran outside, the sky was even darker than before. The sun had completely disappeared, leaving him in a world where almost no light penetrated. The village was still quiet, but now it wasn't just silence, it was something more, as if everything around him was holding its breath, watching him. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, measured steps that made his hair stand on end. He turned around abruptly, but saw no one. Only the shadows of the trees stretching along the narrow path. Anton tried to get into the car, but it wouldn't start. Panic began to wash over him in waves. He jumped out of the car and ran away from the village, along the road he had come on. But the further he ran, the more it seemed to him that the road was twisting and lengthening. No matter how fast he ran, the village was not behind him. The whispers did not subside. They were everywhere now. Anton realized that they were not coming from one source, but from everywhere. The earth, the trees, even the air, everything was speaking to him. Finally, he was tired, exhausted. Dark figures began to emerge from the fog, surrounding him. They did not attack, they simply watched. Their faces were hidden in shadows, but a dim light flickered in their eyes. Anton knew that these were not just people. They were something else, ancient, forgotten. "You should have stayed," one of them said, his voice drawn out and cold. "You broke a vow." Anton did not know what vow they were talking about. He had never been here before, but something inside him told him that it was a lie. These creatures knew him, knew his past, his fears and secrets, and now they had come for him. "You can't leave," another voice continued. "You are one of us." Anton tried to run, but every step he took was like a dream, slow and useless. The figures came closer and closer and closer until one of them reached out and touched his face. The world around him exploded into bright light, and Anton screamed as he was plunged into endless darkness.